What is going on, guys? Pat Damiano here, and today's going to be a little bit of a different kind of video. So this one is going to be for all my coaches and trainers out there. So with this one, we're going to be going over how to structure a kettlebell class. Now, just in case you don't know, I am not some random dude that swings a bunch of kettlebells in his garage and goes and does accounting for his regular work. This is my job. I do train a bunch of people in person, and I teach classes throughout the week at the gym that I rent space at. Now, I coach a couple different classes. You may have seen on my Instagram story my Saturday weekend warrior class where we do a bunch of kettlebell sandbags, Bulgarian bags, maces, clubs, and all that fun stuff. Awesome class, and I have a specific structure for that. If you want to know what that is, then go ahead and comment below. But on this one, we're going to be going over the main way, or one of the main ways that I structure my kettlebell class that I teach on Wednesdays. And it is a little different than just structuring a regular kettlebell workout. They're similar, but there is one thing that is going to change everything when it comes to a class, and we're going to dive into it. Let's do it. Now, real quick, before we actually get into the structure, I just want to talk about something I'm pretty passionate about. So if you're watching this video, there's a really good chance you are a coach or a trainer in the fitness industry. And if you are, then my guess is at some point you may want to do some stuff online. Build an online coaching business, just post content, whatever it might be. If that is you, then please go ahead and click the link in my description below so you can get my 26 ways in 26 days and how to create better content and improve your business. Now, whether you are starting from scratch or someone who is in the industry a little bit and has some stuff going, regardless, this is going to be really beneficial for you. It's completely free, so just go ahead and click that link. This is something I'm passionate about. It's worked for me, and I want to help out some other coaches, right? So let's get into our workout. All right, guys, now let's get into the actual structure for our class. So if you are familiar with the way that I structure kettlebell workouts or have seen some of the different ways, this is probably going to look a little familiar. However, like I said, there is one very big difference between structuring a kettlebell workout or any workout for yourself and structuring one for a class. And we're gonna get into it. But let's just talk about the meat and potatoes of the workout. So when it comes to a class, one of the big things that matters the most is people need to enjoy it. What is something that people enjoy a ton with kettlebells? Double complex days, all right? So what we are going to do for this example is go with my Hercules complex to start out. So 3 swings, 3 cleans, 3 push press, okay? So 3, 3, 3 on one side, 3, 3, 3 on the other. We're gonna keep things pretty straightforward. After that, we are going to, we don't need that, okay? We're gonna go plus, let's just call it 20 sit-ups. Keeps things pretty straightforward there. We're gonna do this for a total of 5 sets. Now, we're gonna come back to this. Okay? Because the big difference between a workout for yourself and for a class comes right here. But we're going to get there, all right? Now, like I said, we're doing a double complex day because people love it. Next one is going to be Sisyphus complex, which is, what is it? 5, 2 hand squat cleans, 4 goblet squats, and 3 per leg lunges. All right, so we got a little upper body complex followed by a lower body complex. Still getting a little bit of everything. We got 20 sit-ups. After this, all right, maybe, we haven't really done any rowing, so maybe after this we could just do some ballistic rows. Keep things pretty simple. 10 per side. Rows. Now, if you want to keep things extra simple, what you could do is just ignore the rows and you'll just do another core exercise. So complex, core exercise, complex, maybe we do like leg lifts or something like that, okay? Now, we are going to do this the same way we're gonna do times 5 sets, okay? So all of this, now you're gonna have about, let's call it 5 to 10 minutes of a warm-up. Depending on how talkative your class is, that is a very key factor. This should take up a pretty decent amount of time when it comes to explanation, doing it. We're gonna talk about the way that you do it with them, but when it comes to explanation, answering questions, people going to the bathroom, people chit-chatting while you're explaining, so you have to re-explain things, and so on and so forth, everything that you probably know happens in a class, you know, this is gonna take up the majority of your class. You have a 5 to 10 minute warm-up, and then at the end, what you can always do, I don't even know if you guys can see this. We can do a little farmer's carry finisher, right? Something pretty straightforward there. Any sort of carry really works for a finisher. Now, let's talk about this part, like I said. So, when you have a class, or you're teaching a class, the most important thing is organization and keeping people on the same path, right? Or on the same track, I should say. I might do 5 sets of this and really crush myself and hammer myself with some weight. This might take me 15 to 16 minutes. It might take somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing yet because they're not truly pushing themselves 8 minutes. That's a problem, okay? So what we need to do is make sure that everybody is on the same page. Now, what we do in a class setting is put things on a clock. That is going to be the most important thing when it comes to structuring a class, because sometimes you might have 8, 12, 15, 20, 30 people in a class. You need to make sure things are organized, okay? And the easiest way to do that is put everything on a clock. So that is what I tend to do. So for example, we have this Hercules complex followed by 20 sit-ups. There's a couple different ways that you can go about it, okay? One way is just put a set clock. So let's just call it 14 minutes to get your 5 sets done, okay? So if somebody's really moving slow, cool. Maybe they don't get all 5 sets in. That's on them. They got to speed things up a little bit. If somebody is a little new and maybe they don't know how to challenge themselves truly yet and they get through this really quick, you could always be like, hey, you're still learning this, you're still practicing, go do a 6th, maybe even a 7th set. And that way, they're not done and just sitting there for 6 minutes waiting for everybody. They can still get some work in, okay? So that is a really good way. And then at the end of the day, it just keeps everybody on the same clock. Hey, no matter what happens, when that clock hits 14 minutes, we're done, right? So go do your thing. The goal is to get about 5 sets in, or if the goal is to get 5 sets done, and if you don't, then maybe you just moved a little slow, and so on, right? Now, another way to do this is, actually, you can set it as an AMRAP. All right, you can set it as an AMRAP. I normally don't do this, but it is possible. So you can basically just take out the 5 sets and say, hey guys, we're gonna be rolling for 14s no matter what. Everybody's going for 14 minutes. Just get after it, right? If you're brand new, or maybe you just don't really like to lift heavy, you go a little bit lighter and you get a lot more sets in. If you like to lift heavy, then maybe you go heavier, have a little bit more rest, and then you don't get as many sets in. No problem. If you're familiar with my Weekend Warrior class that I do on Saturdays, this is how I basically structure everything. When I have 30 people in a room, an AMRAP is the easiest way to just kind of herd the cattle in a sense, okay? Now, the last way is how I tend to do things when I am teaching a kettlebell class, and things are a little bit more structured and organized as opposed to the chaos that is Weekend Warriors, is I will do things as some sort of EMOM, okay? So this first part right here might be an EMOM 10. So every minute on the minute for 10 minutes, okay? We have 2 exercises. They're each gonna have their own minute. So minute 1, you do your Hercules complex on one side, you do it on the other, you rest the remainder of the minute. This second minute, you do your 20 sit-ups. Third minute, back to the complex, and so on and so forth. So that's another really good way to make sure everybody is moving on the same clock, and it's also just kind of cool to see everybody do the same thing at the same time. So that's one added bonus of it, okay? Now, you can do this a couple different ways. So if you want your people to challenge yourself a little bit, or maybe the complex is just too much to get done in a minute, so you might be able to do this as an EMOM 10, right? Okay, then you have a 10-minute piece here. You probably couldn't do this as an EMOM 10. This is just going to crush people. There's too much going on. So what I might say is every 90 seconds, you do one of the exercises, all right? So meaning, 3, 2, 1, boom, clock beeps. Everybody does the Sisyphus complex. Let's say it takes them 45 seconds. They now have 45 seconds to rest. When the clock hits a minute and a half, they go into their ballistic rows, all right? So the ballistic rows, they do 10 on each side. That might take 30 seconds. Now end up with a full minute of rest. And then you just keep going back and forth for a total of 5 sets. Maybe you do 6, just an option, right? You could also combine the two. Again, I'm kind of throwing a lot at you right here, but there's just different ways to do it, and it's all going to revolve around just putting things on a clock. So you could combine the two. Maybe every 2.5 minutes, you do both of these. So that gives people a little bit more freedom to go about things how they want, but we're all still structured on the clock. So the clock beeps, you do your Sisyphus complex, you might say, screw it, I'm going right into my ballistic rows, I'm gonna bang those out. I did all of this in 1 minute, now I get to rest for a minute and a half, because that's what I want. Or you drag it out a little bit, do your Sisyphus complex, rest for a little bit, do the ballistic rows, and then, maybe that took you a minute and a half, now the person's resting for a minute before you start the second set at the 2.5 minute mark, next set would be at the 5, and so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? So this is a really good, it's not even a really good way, it's the best way to keep your class organized, is keep everything on a clock. And this route, or these 3 routes specifically, to still let people lift some weights. I'm not gonna say, all right, everything we do is 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, because that's a little too much like HIIT, conditioning and cardio and boot campy type of class for me at least. I will do it in certain scenarios, but for the most part, I'm gonna give people some time to kind of go about things how they want and let people lift some weights and kind of get after it. I've got really heavy kettlebells. I like to let people challenge themselves. So this is how I like to structure kettlebell classes. When it comes to my personal setup, a lot of people like to ask me that, and I figured I'd answer it in a video. Honestly too, realistically, this is just kind of one way or one actual structure to go about it. But the overarching theme when it comes to teaching a class, in my opinion, is this right here. Putting things on a clock is going to make your life a lot easier. It's going to allow you to keep things a lot more organized, and it's going to, most importantly, allow you to plan your classes more efficiently, right? So this part's going to take 14 minutes. Right? Because if you just say, all right, guys, everybody go do 5 sets of this. That could take 8 minutes. It could take 16. You don't really know unless you've literally done it yourself. But then again, there's so many different people in class. Anyway, keep things on a clock. It's going to make your classes a lot better. It's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to planning and structuring your workouts. And the most important part is herding the cattle in a class. Okay? So if you are somebody who teaches classes and you are curious about how to structure things, realistically, this part, you can do whatever you want. If you do teach kettlebell classes though, I recommend doing double complex days. Everybody fucking loves them. But for the most part, the one takeaway I want you and I need you to take away from this to make your classes better, put things on a clock. There's so many different ways you can go about it. Your people are going to love you for it because your classes are going to be good, fun, and they are going to be organized. That's all I got for you today. I'll see you later.
Yeah.